What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel and to episode 1 of Let's Play RuneScape Kingdoms, the role-playing game. This is a tabletop role-playing game set in the world of Gielinor, and I could not be more excited. The moment that I realized that this was a thing, I knew that I had to order it, and in fact, if you pre-order RuneScape Kingdoms, the role-playing game, you will receive this advanced copy, which means that it might still have some tweaks to make. This might not be the final version, but still epic. This advanced copy of RuneScape Kingdom, the role-playing game, rules, which I'm very excited to share with you today and to kick off a campaign together. I've been playing RuneScape for nearly 20 years. I started playing in 2006, so it's been a long time, and I have always wondered what it would be like to enter Gielinor in tabletop role-playing fashion, and I'm so very excited to have this official product available, allowing us to do this. I'm so stoked. In today's episode, we are going to get started with creating a character. I have never created a RuneScape Kingdoms character before. We're going to do that together. I'm going to be learning the game as I go, and hopefully, in addition to being maybe entertained, you can also learn how to play yourself by following along with me in this series. This product is a collaboration between Jagex and Steamforged. You can actually search RuneScape Kingdoms, Steamforged, or maybe even just RuneScape Kingdoms, and come to this page where you can see that there are actually two different products available in the RuneScape Kingdoms line, and I'm very excited for both. On the left, we have the RuneScape Kingdoms board game. Now, this is by the same company that created, I think, the Dark Souls RPG and board game, if I'm not mistaken. So I know that those are very, very popular games. And these board games look absolutely sick. You and a group of friends can play, can literally create a RuneScape character, level up, go on quests and fight bosses. We have the Shadow of Elvarg, the Colon Romancer, it looks like the Calphite Queen, the King Black Dragon, and Tizkalzuk, is that right? Yeah, all available in the board game, which is really, really freaking cool. I'm so excited for this. And they also have the tabletop role-playing game available, which you can see here. And that's what we're going to be playing today. I do hope to get my hands on a copy of RuneScape Kingdoms once it launches, and I hope to play that with you on this channel as well. But in this series, we're going to be playing the tabletop role-playing game. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about my setup here. So on the right, you can see I have a page up with the rules, and so right now we have two rule books that we're going to be using when playing this game. So first off, RuneScape Kingdoms, the role-playing game, is a complete role-playing game. It is very cool. We've got a whole section on the setting of RuneScape, and I really love how many areas that they have included in the core book. We have character creation, which is a section that we're going to cover today in this session. We have core rules. This is how you actually play the game, right? So we've got how to really do anything. The test is kind of like a core mechanic that's going to let us know if we pass or fail at, for instance, trying to collect normal logs with our woodcutting skill, right? This is also going to cover combat. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into combat, but it's actually not too complicated. I'm happy to see that it all feels very RuneScapey, and that it's very apparent that the designers really considered RuneScapiness, for lack of a better word, when creating the game, both the board game and the role-playing game. It shines through. We have a whole section on magic, prayer, and summoning. These are all of the kind of supernatural abilities that you have, at least in the core rulebook, right? And I think it's awesome that they provided support for summoning out of the box, right? Not just magic and prayer, but summoning is here as well. That is really exciting. You have a chapter on crafting equipment, a chapter on quests and consequences, friends and foes. We have a bestiary with all kinds of iconic RuneScape characters that should keep us going for a while. And then a number of boss encounters, which is so sick. You can see here that we have stats for Delrith, for Elvarg. We can go on Demon Slayer and Dragon Slayer, Tizkalzuk, Tiztok Jad, Oh my gosh, there are so many epic bosses here that we could encounter in the world as we play. Yeah, so that is the first rule book that we're going to be using in this campaign. The other is the Mythic Game Master Emulator 2nd edition. This is an engine that simulates having a dungeon master or a game master. This is essentially a tool that allows you to play any role-playing game solo, and so this is how I'm going to play RuneScape Kingdoms without needing a group to play with, at least in this particular campaign. I do have quite a few other Mythic resources that we might tap into depending on the situation, but at the core of this series, we're going to be focused on RuneScape Kingdoms, the role-playing game, giving us all of our skill check mechanics, our combat mechanics, our world setting, our items, our storylines, all of that good stuff are going to come from this. And then Mythic is basically going to give us the surprises, the twists. This is basically going to be helping the story to be a surprise even to me as it unfolds. The story is going to be just as fresh and surprising to me as it is to you. You're going to get to watch it all unfold with me as we go, and it's going to be a blast. You can actually find Mythic Game Master Emulator. Very good. Yep, you can buy that here from DriveThru RPG. You can get a physical copy or a PDF like I have, which is very handy for playing on the go. You can play on your phone or on your PC. You can play from anywhere, which is great. And I should say, because I know that I'm pitching these things very hard, I'm actually not affiliated with either of these products. I'm just super excited by them. I get nothing if you go off and buy them. I just think that they're cool, and I'm happy that they exist. Yeah, so that's really it. On the other side here, we've got a little note-taking app where I'm going to be creating our character. Instead of using like character sheets and all of that, I'm going to use, or instead of using physical character sheets, I'm going to create character sheets, adventure notes, all of that's going to happen in the note-taking app here on the top left. And then I actually have my dice over here with a webcam that I'm super excited about. My wife got me this awesome mount, right, so that I can mount my camera pointing down, so shout out to her for that. This is me setting it up for the first time for this video series. You can see I've got my dice tower. I've got 4 D6s. This is what you're going to need. Oh, and a D4. 4 D6s and a D4. This is what you're going to need to play RuneScape Kingdoms. All right. So if you have D6s and a D4, then that's everything you need to play RuneScape Kingdoms. That's all the dice you need. For Mythic, we need a D100. That is the core mechanic of Mythic. So here is our D100 for Mythic. Here are our D6 and D4 for RuneScape Kingdoms, and that is the complete setup. Okay, let's actually kick things off by creating a character. I'm going to skip to Chapter 2, creating a character. And over here in Notion is the app that I'm using. I really like using Notion for keeping track of all kinds of things, from school to role-playing and all of that good stuff. It's a cool app for keeping track of, your daily life. It's a good choice, and so I'm going to create a page here. Let's call it character for now, because we don't know what our character's name will be. Probably Twinrova, but just in case, we don't know. I'm going to change the icon here just for fun to be like the little fencing dude. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so yeah, this will be an empty page. Yeah, the art in here is just sick. This looks like the clan portal. Okay, so a character in RuneScape Kingdoms is going to consist of attributes and skills, and this is very familiar if you are used to games like Dungeons and Dragons, for instance, right? But it's actually, the attributes section is greatly simplified, I think to the benefit of the game, while the skill section is more extensive. Yeah, there are 21 skills, each covering certain specific areas of knowledge. And this is perfect actually, because this gives the game a very RuneScape feel. And so the attributes are, let's see if we can find those down below. We have strength, Yeah, attributes are broken down into the following areas. Strength, how physically strong you are. Strength measures how much you can lift, how easily you can knock down a door or carry a load of ore from a mine. Agility, how dexterous and skillful you are. Agility measures how good you are at moving swiftly and quietly, manipulating complex items with your hands, or clambering up a wall. Intellect is how you create solutions to problems facing you. Intellect measures how perceptive you are, how well you interpret information, and how quickly you can determine solutions. And from these 3 scores, you generate your character's basic potential in the game world. This is as opposed to skills that are things that you must learn over time. Right. Skills represent the broad areas of knowledge and training your characters can become expert in over the course of their travels. So, strength, while strength is something that you can get better at, everyone has some level of strength. Not everyone has some level of blacksmithing. That is a skill rather than an attribute. That's kind of how the game breaks these things down, and I like it. Let's see if I can give you a sneak peek of the skills. All right, so here are all the skills in the game. You can kind of give this a glance. We've got Dungeoneering, which is interesting. Herblore, of course. Hunter, Woodcutting, Thieving, Summoning, Ranged. Notice that Strength is an attribute while Attack is a skill, and I think the Attack and Strength skills are kind of rolled up into the single Attack skill in this game. So you don't really have that split between Attack and Strength. They both exist, but it doesn't work in the same manner as it does in the video games, and that is completely fine. But yeah, this is cool. That right off the bat gives it a RuneScape feel. Let's see how they recommend you start with creating a character. Yeah, these 2 values define how good your character is at something, showing you where your character's strengths lie and the areas they need to spend time grinding in if they're going to achieve mastery. Right, so character generation tips. The first thing we're going to create is a character concept. What's your character's name? Where do they come from? Why are they adventuring? These are important questions for making your character feel real, making them come alive at the tabletop, and are an excellent place to start when creating your character. Then we are going to determine our starting attributes, right? Finally, we're going to pick a background, which is going to influence our skills. And then finishing steps, we're going to have life points. We're going to have prayer points. We're going to have summoning points. It's going to feel very much like the video game. It's going to be a blast. Okay, why don't we start off with our character concept. We want to imagine what our character is going to be like in the game world. And this is challenging because I don't actually have a good sense of what kind of character that I want to play in the game. And so I might decide to do things randomly at first. Our first character, this character might be somewhat randomly generated. Yeah, that might be fun too, just to see what we come up with. Yeah, the first step, it says when you've got an idea of who your character is, it's time to get to some other key details. But I think instead of having a concept in mind, like I don't know if my character is going to be a master ranger or a skiller. I don't really have a vision. I feel like I'd be equally happy with any kind of archetypal or iconic RuneScape character, right? So I think we might leave it up to fate. Yeah, I think that's a decent idea. Okay, so where are you from? The first step is deciding where you come from in Gielinor. It doesn't change anything about your character. You won't gain any bonuses or have any penalties for being from Asgarnia or Misthalin, but it does give you an idea of where your character might feel most at home. Yeah, so you can either roll on a table or choose the kingdom that makes the most sense for your character to be from. I think if I was choosing, I would probably pick Misthalin just so that we could start off in a familiar area. And I think I might do that. You can roll 2d6 on this table to generate your background, which is really cool. It's funny, we have non-human regions. Interesting. Kandrin, Asgarnia, Misthalin are the center choices. Mauritania. Oh, okay. So like with a 2d6, you're more likely to roll like a 3 and a 3, right? Or a 3 and a 4. So this like middle portion of the table is where you're more likely to roll. But you could roll a wild, you could roll, Snake Eyes, right? get non-human regions, or 2/6s and get the Wushenko Isles. This is really interesting. Yeah, I think I'm going to just decide that my background, that my character comes from the Kingdom of Mistalin, and that is mostly so that I can have kind of like a very iconic RuneScape starting point for this character, and then we can go out and explore these other areas. I think I'm going to open the rules twice, actually. Let's see, this should be useful. I'm going to head down to the character sheet. We'll let that load. This should help give us some inspiration on how to formulate our character sheet. Look at this art. Where is that? What is that? There's Al-Kharid, right? Oh, so these are all, this is different. This is Lumbridge then. Oh, this is like seeing the Al-Kharid castle from somewhere in Lumbridge. That's what this looks like to me. That is really cool, honestly. Okay, so here is a character sheet, which is pretty cool. I wonder if I can zoom out a little bit for you here. Yeah, so character name, player name. We're going to get into catalyst and motivation. Here are the skills, right? Interesting. They all have like a number and then a box. It's quite interesting. Yeah, we have life points. Our 3 attributes are strength, agility, and intellect. Summoning points and prayer points. So these are all numbers that we need to track. Okay, yeah, so here's how inventory works, and I think this is so cool in RuneScape. We have 6 active slots. They're head, body, leg, cape, of course, arm or weapon, and weapon, right? So you can dual wield, you can have a weapon and a shield. There are different choices here, but head, body, leg, right? And then the cape. I love that they include capes. There's actually all kinds of different capes, including max capes for all of the different skills that we will be hunting down. It is so very fun that you can go for all of the capes in the tabletop role-playing game. And then you have the backpack, and this is 28 slots, just like in the video game, at least just like in RS2 and RS3, right? We have 28 slots in our backpack. I say that because in Classic you actually had 30, which is interesting. But yeah, we're going to have a 28 slot backpack. There's going to be rules about stacking and whatnot. Yeah, this is going to be such a fun time. Okay, so the first thing we needed to mention was where we come from, and so I guess that'd be the background area. So I'm going to go ahead and create a section over here. I'm going to call it background, and I'm going to say, how do they word it? Let's see, where are you from? So I'm going to say home, Mistalin, right? And maybe we'll spruce this up by having this be in bold type. Nice, nice. Okay. Mistalin is definitely going to need to be added to the dictionary. Hopefully I spelled that correctly. Let's take a look. Yep, Mistalin. Yep, that looks right. Cool. Okay, next we need to name our character. And so the same with the concept. I'm going to skip the name for now. Let's see. I'll say, we'll put player, Twinrova, that's me, and then character. I don't know if we're going to name this character Twinrova or not. We might see what kind of character it turns out to be, and then decide on the name. So we'll come back to this. Okay, so this seems cool. So the next thing that we need to do, and this is very different from the video game, is we need a catalyst. Before you begin determining your character's statistics, it's useful to know why they've chosen to begin adventuring in the first place. What dragged you from your life before and plunged you into the world of desperation and danger you now inhabit? What drove you out from a life of comfort, or at least stability, into the wild lands of the world? Whatever it was that gave you that push is called your catalyst, and it's useful for more than just building out how you perceive your character. It can also be used to give you a reroll on a failed test once per game session. That's pretty interesting. If you fail a test once per session, you can explain to the GM how your catalyst gives you the fortitude to try again, digging within yourself and using this important memory of what marks you out as different to grant you a chance to succeed where previously you failed. It's quite interesting. and I think it's a good move for the game because it is quite confusing who you are in the video game RuneScape, right? And you can bring your own, you can have your own kind of idea about who your character is and where you come from, and you have that in your mind, and you interact with all these other players in the video game, right? And their characters also all have backgrounds that are equally mysterious. You know, it's whatever they perceive that their character's background is. But in the tabletop role playing game, the catalyst actually gives you something that happened that made you choose a life of adventure. So we can come up with this ourselves, or we can roll on the catalyst table. And while I did have a strong opinion on the place that I wanted to be from, right? Just that I could start by exploring Lumbridge, honestly, is where I wanted to start, somewhere in that area. In this case, I don't actually have a strong opinion, and I really would like to see what the game comes up with. So why don't we make our first roll? I'm going to get a 2d6 here, and we're going to drop them in the tower and see what catalyst we come up with. All right, that is a 2 and a 6. That is 8. You received a letter telling you of a great fortune waiting for you out in the world somewhere. Who sent it? Why? And how to find this fortune. Wow, that is so... Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so I'm going to say catalyst. Catalyst. Okay, let's take a look at the character sheet. Okay, they have this section here for the catalyst. So, yeah, we're going to say a letter telling of a great fortune waiting for you arrived out of nowhere. Who sent it? Why? And how can we find it? Wow, so it's an anonymous letter that we receive out of nowhere. So whatever our character is, whatever we decide that their background in life is going to be, this catalyst is the thing that's going to kick off our character's story. That is so very interesting. Okay, let's why don't we go ahead and move on? That is a great starting point. It already kind of gives us a sense of who our character is a little bit. Very nice. It looks like we're also going to have a motivation as we play the game. That will come up shortly. But that's cool. It gives your character a reason to be adventuring in the first place. Okay, so next up, motivations. So we know what made you an adventurer, but what is it that keeps you going when everything turns against you, right? Your motivation is the thing that ensures you never give in. As with your catalyst, your motivation provides you with an edge in gameplay. Once per session, you can restore lost life points equal to your highest attribute score by narrating how you draw on this to push through the pain and struggle. So this is really cool. It gives player characters a little incentive to incorporate their character's catalyst and motivations into gameplay by giving you a tangible reward. In one case, it's like a re-rolled test, right? And in the other case, you have restored life points. So that actually sounds like it could be very useful. Okay, something interesting to know. I'll get off topic here for a second. Let's jump over, and we're going to do this. I'm going to jump all around. Hopefully you can keep up with me. But, you know, I'm learning this as we go. I'm teaching you as we go. There's going to be a lot to cover, and it's going to be a good time. But I'm going to jump over to the Welcome to Gielinor section that kind of breaks down the world, and I'm going to scroll down for a while. Near the end of this section, I actually could go to creating your character and scroll up. Probably. There is a little sidebar that discusses death, and that is what I would like to briefly discuss with you. It's interesting. I don't know if it's like the art on these pages that make them take forever to load. Okay, here's the end of... Okay, right here. So we have a section in like the setting part of the book, the Welcome to Gielinor chapter, covering the gods of Gielinor, and it has a lot of good information, and we will come over and reference these things as they become prevalent in the story, right? But we have this sidebar on death. It says few... Well, actually, do we have... death as a character named here. Gods. Demigods. We have a Masket, Icthlorin, and I guess Death. Does he count? Okay, well, the sidebar says, few meet with death and return to speak of their experience. After all, this is in many ways his central purpose. Those few who have managed to return from beyond speak of an office in which death waits, of death possessing the patience of a teacher and the willingness to explain the situation which the recently released soul finds themselves in. It is believed death was the first person to die on Gielinor's surface, and, upon doing so, was transformed into the grim reaper form he now wears. I will only say we are fortunate to have such a kindly death, no matter how terrifying his appearance may be. Right, so when we die in the game, we're actually going to go to Death's office, just like in the video game, and have to pay a price to respawn or resurrect, as it is. Keep in mind that these notes here are actually notes written down by Reldo, the Varrock librarian, and so that's pretty cool. They actually have his bias written into them, and in some parts of his notes in this chapter, he points out that we can't really know if certain details are true. This is just the legend that has been passed down, which is important to keep in mind as we go. Okay, yeah, back to creating our character. We'll head back down to the motivation section. Okay, which should be right here. Okay, so we have another kind of 2d6 roll on our motivation, right? We have a motivation table here, and yeah, we'll go ahead and have another roll to see what is our character's motivation. 5. Helping people. You want to improve the world however you can. You never stop trying to make things better. I really like that. So far, this is feeling very Twinrova in my mind. I think that's a funny kind of start. And then I really like the motivation of always wanting to be helping people. I really like playing the good guy in role-playing games. Yeah, so this is really cool. Helping people is our motivation. You never stop trying to make things better. Could that be a little bit of a character flaw? Is that always a good thing? It probably is a good thing, but there might be moments where that gets my character into trouble. Okay, that is awesome. Next up we have our attributes. So we've already covered how our character is going to have 3 attributes and 21 skills. So let's go ahead and create an attributes section. Let's say attributes. And we're going to have strength, right? We're going to have agility and intellect. And I love how this is half the number of attributes that you have in like Dungeons and Dragons, but it seems to work. 3 attributes seems to be enough, especially when you're going to keep track of so many different skills throughout the course of the game. Okay, let's see. How do we determine our attributes? So there are 2 ways. You can either do point allocation or randomly. So point allocation, you have 8 points to distribute between your attributes. You must have 1 in every attribute. You may assign the rest of the points as you see fit. Random allocation, you may roll 2d4s and 1d6, allocating each dice roll to an attribute. You may re-roll both d4 or 1d6, but must accept the second result. If your total attribute score is 5 or less, you may re-roll all your dice. Okay, I kind of like it being random, except I don't want to get like too much of a buff beyond 8, so I might try the random allocation and actually try to keep it between like 5 and say 8 or 9. Yeah, let's see how it goes. 2d4s and 1d6, allocating each dice result to an attribute. Okay, so let's just have a line to take note of our rolls. So 2d4. We have a 3. Also, I'm going to make every dice roll on camera. You're going to be able to see where the dice, how the dice land. There's going to be no fudging of dice rolls in this series. As you are probably aware if you've watched my other RuneScape content, I don't use the RuneScape wiki when I'm questing. I like to play Iron Man accounts. I really love the restrictions that I place on my characters. It kind of makes the game more fun. And so, my restriction here is that every dice roll has to happen on screen in front of you all so you can see how it turns out, and there's no fudging the dice to achieve a particular outcome once the game is actually started. When we're creating our character, maybe we'll do that, but yeah, we might. I'd be willing to fudge dice specifically in character creation to kind of get the character concept that I'm looking for. But once the simulation of the game is started, then we're going to treat it as much as we can like a simulation, and just let the game play. And yeah, everything is going to be transparent so that you can see how it all unfolds as it goes. Okay, so we need one more d4 and then a d6. So our next d4 roll is a 3 again. Nice. So that is already up to 6. That's 6 points that we could spend. Let's roll our d6. And we get a 2. Okay, so that's actually exactly what, 8? 3, 6, 8. Perfect. We rolled an 8. That's exactly kind of what I wanted. So we're going to have 2 better attributes and 1 that's worse. What do I want to be good at? I want to be smart, right? So intellect 3 seems like a good place to be. The question is, do I want to be more agile or more strong? How dexterous and skillful you are, moving swiftly and quietly, clambering up a wall, physically strong, knock down a door, carry a load of ore from a mine. I think, and I'm playing solo, I'm not going to be with a group. I just get this gut feeling that agility is going to be more directly useful than strength. I could be wrong about that, but this is going to be a pretty well-rounded character, and I like that. And because of that, at this point, we're officially going to name this character Twinrova. It just is what it is. This is Twinrova. Yep, we'll change this from character to Twinrova. And I'm so excited to have Twinrova exist as a character in RuneScape Kingdoms. This is very, very exciting. Okay. Yeah, so we have attributes. Next up is skills, right? Each skill has a minimum score of 1 and a maximum score of 10. When you first build your character, your skills will have a score between 1 and 6, but you can improve these over time. Initially, you'll start out specializing in a few skills, but with enough work and enough game time, you can master all of them. Okay, so here are all the different skills in the game, right? We have an optional role for free character building, so you can build your character without the restrictions of a background. Backgrounds are included as a way of giving your character a place in Gielinor and a past for you to draw on when beginning your adventures. But if you want to choose for yourself, you can. Use the following rules and create your character as you choose. So you have 31 skill points to assign as you choose. There's a minimum of 1 in every skill, so that gives you an additional 10 points to assign wherever you want. So that's pretty cool. We could go down that route if we don't find a background that's suitable for us. Does this say... yeah, this is just about what skills are. Oh, and it also sets the limit that you can't have a skill over 6 on character creation. It seems high anyway. Okay, so your character has a background. As every story, in the background is what, if we don't choose the optional free character building, the background that we decide on is going to give us like a starting package of skills. And this is authentic, right? Because if you played RuneScape in 2001, which I know so many of you have, probably not actually. There weren't nearly as many people playing RuneScape at that point in time, before it like really exploded. But there is the 2001scape server that I've been playing a lot recently, and on 2001scape, which is a private server replicating May of 2001, in RuneScape's history, you actually do pick like a background for your character. I think it's called a class, and it gives you a starting set of levels above 1. So this is actually A throwback to 2001 is how you can consider this. So, as every story has a beginning, each hero has a life before they set out on their adventures. To reflect this, a player character's background provides a package of skills they've acquired through their lives up until the point they begin exploring dungeons and seeking mythical treasure. You can choose a background, or you can roll on the table below to select one at random. Ooh, interesting. Every skill starts with 1 point in it automatically. The skill points you get from your backgrounds increase this by the specified amount. So if you gain 2 points in farming from your background, you can increase your score from 1 to 3. Each background comes with a short description of the type of work the profession usually entails, a package of 10 skill points divided between 3 skills derived from the background. Okay, so it's the same, you get the same 10 skill points above 21 as if you picked the free character building. Either way, you're getting at least 1 in every skill and then 10 points to spend in accordance with either your choice or your background. There's a sidebar here that describes how you can basically tailor your experience in the game by choosing multiple backgrounds. So like if you want to play starting the game as an average person, then you only want to pick 1 skill package. If you want to start the game as an adventurer with experience already under your belt, select 2 packages. Or if you want to start the game as a competent, rugged adventurer already, you can select 3 or more skill packages. This is basically whether you want to start from square one, or whether you want to start with a stronger character or player up front. And this character, we're gonna just take 1 skill package. I want to start from square one. I really want to build this character from nothing, right? I want to build them up to whatever their fate ends up being. Yeah, I kind of want to start from the beginning. So we're gonna pick 1 background, and I'm actually not going to randomize this. We will take a look at all of the different backgrounds. Let's see, pirate, summoner, assassin. Wow, so you roll 2d6, and instead of adding them together, it's not a 2d6 roll, it's a d6 roll. So the first roll is the tens place, and the second roll is the ones place, and whatever you roll, that is your background. But I'm actually going to pick a background. I have to pick the mining background, and that is because mining is my favorite skill. When Twinrova really came from Mistalin in 2006 when I started playing RuneScape, mining was definitely basically everything that I did in the game was mining. I blacksmithed also, but really I was all about mining. So it just makes sense for my character to kick off the game as a miner. Do they have a background slot? Yes, they have a background slot, or section rather, in your character sheet. So I'm going to say background miner. Okay. To keep it simple, let's go down to the mining entry. You've spent enough time below ground tunneling through clay, stone, dirt, and the cold earth that when you look up and see the sky again, it is a surprise. You know your way around in the dark, the feel of different stones beneath your fingers, and the sound you get before a cave-in. You can dig up the finest quality ores as a result of all this experience, though, and that's a skill the world always needs. Now that is really sick, honestly. And wow, we're going to get a +3 to archaeology, +2 to dungeoneering, and a +5 to mining. Wow, so we're going to be skilled at mining right off the bat. That is actually really cool. Okay, so I'm going to create a new section called skills. All right. Okay, so I went ahead and added all of the skills in the game to our character sheet, and I do need to note the bonuses that we get from our background. So let's go back to the miner. So we're going to get +3 to archaeology, so our archaeology is going to go from 1 to 4. All right, we don't want that to be a bold 4, just a normal 4. So that's really cool. Skills only go to level 10, so that's really important, and that should let you know that these are pretty significant buffs to one skill to start the game. Defense we want to add to our dictionary, spelled like that. Dungeoneering, is that right? Yep. Add that to dictionary. Dungeoneering, yeah, we're going to get a +2 to Dungeoneering. So this is going to become 3, right? And not the bold version of 3. Okay, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty significant. And then mining, we're going to get, let's add that to dictionary, a +5. So we're going to start with 6 mining, which is already a few points away from completionist. Not completionist, max, from max mining. And you might think to yourself, wow, that's quite the initial buff, right? And it is. That is a good initial buff, but as I'm seeing our attributes and our skills, I'm just kind of laughing at myself because of how challenging this is actually going to be. I'm going to jump over to the core rules for you, and I'm going to explain probably the core mechanic of RuneScape Kingdoms. Once you learn this mechanic, you can play basically most of the game, right? It all comes down to this. It's the test, all right? And a test, like this says, can be anything from climbing a wall to crafting a helm, from a silver ingot to battling Elvarg. To make a test, you roll 3d6, aiming to roll under. So 3d6, right? This is going to average, 3d6 is going to average what? Like around 9 is going to be ish the average roll. 9 to 4 times 3 is 12. You have to roll under the target number. What is the target number, you ask? That is your appropriate attribute and skill score. Right, so right off the bat, if we wanted to, I don't know, smith a bronze helmet, we would have to probably take our 3 intellect, add it to our smithing of 1, that makes 4, and then we have to roll these 3d6 at 4 or under to succeed. Otherwise, we fail. And we can't always just like attempt again and again and again. So this is actually going to be pretty tough to get a good dice roll with any skill that is at 1. It's actually going to be really difficult to succeed at something in the game, which is quite interesting. So yeah, it makes me understand why it would be beneficial to push one attribute higher to give you a little more room, right? But if you look at it, basically anything we do in the game, we're going to have a very high success of failure, except for our background, archaeology, dungeoneering, and most importantly mining, right? All these skills that we've gained from a background in mining in the Kingdom of Mistlin, right? We're going to have a chance of success, and we probably will succeed. Like mining, let's see. If it has to do with our strength or agility or intellect, right? That's either 9 or 8, and that is still at the lower end of the odds, right? If 9 to 12 is going to be average, then with our best skill in the game, we might have about an average chance at succeeding. So this is actually going to be, quite challenging. I should note that there are scenarios where your target number actually gets increased or decreased by 1 or 2, I think is the most that I've seen. But usually the number that you're aiming for is your attribute plus your skill, whatever is the most relevant pair. There's also this idea of rolling a triple, which is really interesting. So if you roll a triple and you succeed, then you double your success and something good happens. Or if you fail the test and roll a triple, you not only fail, but something bad happens. So an example is, if you're trying to attack an enemy, you not only miss, but you might drop your weapon as well. That's quite unfortunate. There are also situations where you roll with advantage or disadvantage, and in either of these cases, you roll 4d6. And with advantage, you take the highest 3, and with disadvantage, you take the lowest 3. So that that actually could make quite a difference on on a given dice roll. Altogether, this is the core mechanic of RuneScape Kingdoms. This is going to resolve everything from every skill attempt that we make to combat, and it's pretty simple, and it should be fast to make a resolution. So yeah, I'm a fan of the simplicity here, and yeah, this should be fun. Looking at the other backgrounds that you can choose for your character in the game, I noticed that there are some backgrounds where your 10 points are actually split across a bunch of skills with a +2 rank increase, like a more well-rounded character, while other characters are kind of specialists, right? Like the miner got +5 in mining, farmer gets it in farming, the blacksmith gets it in smithing, which makes sense, but it's just interesting how your background, the backgrounds aren't cookie cutter, I guess. They are very different and unique and interesting. So it would be cool to start the game over at some point as a different background. But keep in mind that this is RuneScape, right? So your character is not forced into a particular class, right? You're just starting with an advantage somewhere that's going to help you basically just get off the ground going, right? Have some reasonable chance of success somewhere. But you can shape your character into anything that you want them to be. So this is still RuneScape. You can max every skill. So it really is not that critical of a decision. It just kind of sets the stage for the background of your character, more than determining their future path. We still have a couple more things to handle before we can officially kick off our campaign. So there's this final steps section that you reach after picking a background. The first thing that you want to note is that your character, it's a human, and so their size is medium. We'll note that on our character sheet. And basically, all the different creatures in the game have a size associated with them. So like, for instance, I believe an imp would be classified as small or tiny, while a dragon would be maybe giant or colossal, right? There's different sizes. And the size of a creature relative to your size is going to affect your ability to hit them and to deal damage. And I think the way it works is that a creature that is significantly smaller than us, right, is going to be harder to hit, but we're going to deal more damage to them. And a creature that is very large might be easier to hit, right, with their increased size, but much more difficult to damage, assuming that their increased size means that they're also stronger. So size is definitely going to affect the game. The next thing is life points. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and... Should we do this above attributes and skills? Yeah, I feel like that would be useful. I'm going to make a section on our character sheet. Let's call it, I don't know, state for now. Okay, we're going to have life points, and this is going to be the total, the sum of your attributes plus your skill points. So every time we increase an attribute, and every time we increase a skill, every time we earn a skill point or an attribute, we're also going to increase our life points. So that'll be a nice natural progression throughout the game. So this number should be 31, but I'll just confirm. 11... 2023, right, 31 in our skills to 34, 37, 39. So our life points right now should be 39, right? We're also going to have prayer points and summoning, right? Points. But I'm not quite sure yet how to roleplay this. So obviously life points we're going to have right off the bat, right? Because your character just has an innate endurance or ability to survive the damage that they receive, right? But prayer points and summoning points, we're going to have them, but my question is, will my character know that they can actually use these things right off the bat? I'm thinking maybe no. We might want to role play how they actually get into using prayer to benefit them, or into learning summoning and how that can benefit them. So yeah, those are skills that I'm going to assume that my character, even though they have a 1 point in, that just means they have the ability to learn, not that they have actually learned before. So why don't we start off with 0. This isn't the real number. I'll go look up what they actually are at some point, but let's just see how the story unfolds before making use of prayer points and summoning, and that will make it a little harder, but it'll make more sense to me as far as role-playing goes. Okay, so now we want to move on to equipment. So with our character, we're going to have 8 active slots. So why don't I go... Yeah, we can put equipment down below. Okay, so I'm going to say, like, armor. Okay, and we're going to have 6 slots. Head, body, legs, cape, right? That all-important cape. Oh, the armor is spelled wrong, but we're doing RuneScape spellings here, not American spellings, so armor with the U. Cape. Okay, so now we have a slot that is either arm or weapon. And actually, this could be called offhand. Would make it, for me, a little easier to remember. Offhand. Okay. This can be like a shield. This can be like a weapon. And then weapon. So offhand can be an optional armor slot or a weapon slot. Okay, so these are our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 active slots. This is what we are carrying, using, holding. And actually this weapon slot is really our main hand. So like if we want to use a pickaxe, for instance, then really that item would go into our weapon slot. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, we're also going to have 28 inactive slots, and we're basically going to have to just keep track of this. So I'm going to say backpack or inventory. I think backpack is fine. Yeah, so we have 28 slots of inventory here. Okay, here are the rules. We can go over them quickly. Each different type of runestone, ammunition, and type of resource requires its own slot. You can keep as much ammunition of one type or as many runes of one type as you like in an individual slot. So we can have huge stacks of ammo or runes. For each type of resource, however, you can keep a maximum of 3 in an individual slot. Okay, and that's actually pretty nice, honestly. For example, if you catch a herring while fishing, you assign it to a slot. Up to 2 additional herring you catch can be kept in the same slot as the first herring. If, however, you then caught an anchovy, you'd need to assign it to a separate slot. And that makes sense. This is a really simple mechanic for inventory. Basically, unlimited stacks of ammunition and runes. Everything else, it's up to 3 stack in one slot of your inventory. And that effectively triples the size of our inventory compared to the video game with regards to a lot of different items. So this is cool. This is going to work out pretty well. But now we need to pick a starting equipment package. Alright, so kicking off the game, you're supposed to think about your background and what would be the most useful to you, and then pick one of these noob character. Think like you're just off Tutorial Island, but really you're not just off Tutorial Island. You're just you've just approached your catalyst that is, pushing you into adventure, and this is what your character is going to start the game with. And out of these, so we have the melee combat package, right, that has the swarm, helm, shield, plate body. The ranged combat package that looks like it has a bow and arrows, dagger, chaps, and coif. The magic package that has a number of runes, a staff, boots, and an armored shirt. The skiller package that has hammer, chisel, fishing rod, axe, boots, armored shirt. Out of all of these, and it mentions that all of the equipment is starter equipment, so like metals would be made from bronze, for instance. Out of all of these packages, I think the one that makes the most sense for our character is the skiller package, because if Twinrova is a miner in the Kingdom of Misthalin, I don't anticipate that he's been spending a bunch of time in combat. Like his attack skill is actually 1. So the skiller package really makes the most sense. The only downside is that there's not a pickaxe here. So I think I'm going to swap one of these items out for a pickaxe. I think I might make it the one that makes the least sense for our character. So the boots and shirt, those are probably going to be necessary to have any kind of armor soak at all. Combat in this is going to be fun, by the way. It's definitely going to feel somewhat RuneScapey, and I'm excited for it. But I think really the chisel for crafting. Ooh, but you might use the chisel. You might actually use the chisel for cutting jewels, right? When mining. I'm trying to think of which one of these we don't actually need. I think the easiest change then would be to make the axe a pickaxe. Yeah. Okay. So that'll fit better with our character's mining background. So we're going to have a hammer, a chisel, a fishing rod, a pickaxe, boots that I'm going to put in our legs slot. Okay. Let's not have that be bold, thanks. And an armored shirt. Armored shirt. Okay. I'm not exactly sure what an armored shirt is or what kind of perks that it gives to us. We should have an armor rating. So maybe like our state, we should have like an armor stat that we keep track of. Possibly. Yeah, let's go and look up the armored shirt and the boots. We're going to want to go past the core rules to the crafting and equipment section to learn what kind of a benefit we actually get from boots or an armored shirt. So we have rules about gaining raw materials and crafting, and this should be a fun little scroll. If you're looking at the screen and not just listening, you can see all of the fish that are in the core game, the raw meats. Here's all of the ores, different kinds of wood, seeds, produce. So this is like raw materials. Okay, so here are bars, right? We've got food that you can cook. Ooh, herb lore potions that you can make. Okay, melee weapons. We don't have any melee weapons or ranged weapons. Here's ammunition crafting. Here's armor crafting. Okay, armored shirt. So this is a crafting table for an armored shirt. This is not an item that's in the game RuneScape, I think. I could be wrong, right? I'm used to like the chain body and the plate body, right, being the two choices. This seems like it might be like a lower armor, just upper body variant. Okay, and boots right here. So this is actually, these are the entries to craft these items. Looks like they each take 1 metal bar plus 1 animal skin. Which is quite interesting. Okay, let's go down and see if we can find... Okay, here's like the weapons section, not for crafting weapons, but for how they perform in combat. Okay, so now we want to go down to... Actually, let's go back to simple weapons. Do they have a pickaxe, like, as a simple weapon? Yes, they do. Okay, so a bronze pickaxe does 4 stabbing. Okay, so let me actually, in my state, I'm going to add a slot called weapon. We don't really have a weapon, but our weapon would be our pickaxe. So I'm going to say that our weapon is our pickaxe and that it does 4 stabbing damage. It's not just a pickaxe, it is a bronze pickaxe because we want the most basic starter pickaxe in the game. Okay, bronze pickaxe does 4 stabbing damage. Interesting. That's cool. Okay, if I go down to armor now, simple ranged, martial ranged, unique weapons. Ooh, that's cool. Unique ranged. It's got information about the god swords. That is so cool. Okay, we have armor. Okay, armored shirt, bronze, provides an armor of 1. And bronze boots also provides an armor of 1. Look at how iron and bronze are like... Is that identical? Is it actually identical? Mm, it's close. Yeah, there's not really much of a perk to iron compared to bronze. Interesting. Okay, but our armored shirt. Okay, I'm gonna go and mark down here. Our armored shirt gives us an armor increase of 1, and our boots gives us an armor increase of 1. So we can add those together, and our armor rating right now is at 2. Perfect. Okay, so let's get back to character creation, right? Which we should be nearly done with the character creation process. So we have stats, we have our attributes in our skills that's going to help us do like all of our skill checks. We have a background that created our skills, right? We've got our catalyst and our motivation, right? The things that keep us going and the reason why we're adventuring in the first place. We now have our life points marked, our size. We have starting equipment. Okay, yeah, that's actually everything. Awesome. We have a character. We have a character that we can play the game with. That is exciting. The last section in character creation is improving your character, and this is pretty cool. It basically says that as you play the game, you get to add points to your skill, right? To your skills. Basically, at the end of every session, you look at all of the skills that you used during the session. And I think, yeah, successfully or not. So if you attempted a skill check during a session, right, and actually used that skill, then at the end of the session, you can pick one of those skills that you tried to use, successful or otherwise, and you can get a +1 to your skill, to that particular skill. And so there's 21 skills, right, and they can all go up to 10. So that would take 210 minus, 31 sessions to max out your character. That is a lot of RPG sessions with one character. That's a lot of episodes of the series. So it'll take quite a while before our character is maxed. So it's a very slow grind, and you have to think about what do you consider to be a session, right? That's important to keep track of because it's at the end of a session. And the game, in another section, describes this kind of anatomy of a session where it says that you kind of transition from open play to quest play and then to downtime is what makes up a session. So maybe you can consider that moment of downtime between adventures to be one session. That kind of makes it feel like one quest really gives you one skill point. Which not necessarily, but that's just kind of what the game implies. And of course, all of these rules they're not mandates. You can kind of adjust it to however you see fit as you're playing. That's the beauty of a tabletop role-playing game. But the point being is that our character is going to increase in skill very slowly, and this is going to be really fun someday when they are way more competent, right? And able to be more successful. Hopefully, we'll see our character's ability to interact with Gielinor increase and increase as time goes on. Yeah, this is epic. Okay, another important thing is that every time a skill reaches 5 points, you can increase an attribute by 1 point. And you can never increase an attribute past a score of 6. It also explicitly mentions that if you start the game with like a 5 or a 6, you do not get an attribute increase for that, right? So we potentially will lose out on one chance to increase our attributes by 1 by having mining start at 6, but there might be more than enough skills to max out your attributes anyway. It would be 8, 8, 8, right? That's 24. There are 21 skills. We're not starting from ones, so 8 minus 24 minus 8 would be 16. So as long as there are 16 skills at 1, which there are, or 16 skills under 5, which there are more than, then we have the opportunity to max out our attributes as well. So a max account would be 8 strength, agility, intellect, and then 10 in all of your skills. That would be a maxed account in RuneScape Kingdoms, the role-playing game. And that will be a very long-term goal for this character, but Yeah, I mean, how sick would that be? Not only can you play in RuneScape, but you can like go for capes, and you can you can try to max out your account. Speaking of, I guess we have to on that topic. I'm going to head over to crafting and show you the capes section because it is so cool. I'm so excited that they included capes in the game. Let's scroll way down. I think past where we were earlier. Oh, actually, I want to see right here what stab. Those are special effects on weapons. We saw like stab 4, right? I guess it's not a special effect, it's just a kind of damage, right? Yeah, like stabbing versus crushing and slashing damage. So just like in the video games, different weapons deal different kinds of damage. And that's cool. It seems that in the bestiary, our enemy stats are going to maybe have like a certain type of damage, deal extra damage or something, so that you can pick the right kind of weapon for the job. And that's pretty cool. Let's see if I can scroll and find the cape section. It's funny because like a lot of my other role-playing RPG PDFs load immediately, but I guess the art is so high in this game, or not in this game, in this PDF. It must be so high resolution that it just takes the browser a moment to load. Okay, here is the cape section, and this is epic. Glorious flowing robes, each granting a specific benefit. Capes are a means of marking your progression in the game. What they aren't, however, is easy to come by. They can't be crafted. They're awarded for achieving a specific in-game quest, killing a boss, for example, or accomplishing a specific goal, reaching 10 in Herblore, perhaps. Each cape has a different benefit detailed in the table below. To gain the benefit from a cape, it has to be equipped. You can only wear one cape at a time. This is really interesting if you're playing with multiple players. This rule says that only one player can ever possess each cape. They're unique. The first person to reach a goal gains the cape. And so yeah, I would say call that optional. Maybe you think it's cool if you're the first to 10 mining and so you're the only one with a mining cape. But in some games, everyone might want to collect every cape. So you could totally throw that rule out the window if you wanted everyone to be able to have every cape. But in the default rules, the first person to a particular cape wins it. And we actually, there are actually all these capes for things you wouldn't think of, like here's a cape awarded for baking and selling a cake. That's interesting. The green cape. And a problem that I think I'm going to come across is how do you roleplay receiving a cape for something like that? Like we're going to have to think about, because in a video game, it just makes sense that you just, pop and there's a cape in your inventory. We'll have to think about how the capes get awarded. And then here are all of the skill mastery capes, which is so cool. All of their effects awarded for, you actually get a cape for reaching 8 in your attributes, in addition to for reaching 10 in a skill. So yeah, check this out. I don't see a max cape. There's a quest point cape, right? There's this music cape for writing a truly awesome RuneScape song. That's kind of interesting as well. We might have to try to earn that one. That could be a fun time. But yeah, there are capes in the game, and we will be cape hunting. We just need to think about how we're going to represent that, how we're going to represent earning a cape in game. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to want to do is to set up our Mythic adventure, and I will very briefly, hopefully briefly, go over the core idea of Mythic. And to do this, I'm actually going to skip to like the back of the book. I'll say this is if you're going to play tabletop role-playing games solo, this is a must purchase. Honestly, this is going to allow you to play any role-playing game ever solo. Honestly, it is so sick. It's not that hard to learn. The basics are pretty simple. There's 230 pages here, but a lot of it is optional content to make your game even more interesting, right? Once you've got the basics down. But so here's basically how it works. We have the journal, the lists, and the fate chart. Okay, so this is like the core of the Mythic experience. So you have this chaos factor, right? And this chaos factor simulates how chaotic events are in the game at this particular time. And this is trying to simulate a real game master's pace of storytelling. You know, like when you watch a movie, when you read a book, or when you play a tabletop role playing game, the pace slows down, right? From times, like you have periods where there's not as much going on, and then you have periods where it's extremely chaotic, intense, climactic, and the shift of the chaos factor up and down, which happens automatically. You have some influence over it, but it's out of your control, right? That shift is going to make the game feel more or less chaotic. Now, let's say that, okay, so when you start the game, you're at chaos factor 5. This is the default chaos factor. Here's how this works. When you have a question about the game world, like, for instance, you're standing in this is an example from the book, but with a Gielinor twist. You're standing in a house in Lumbridge, right? And you want to know if there's a staircase up to a second floor. If a game master had prepared a detailed world for you to explore, you would ask them and they would say, yes or no. They've got their little map of the world and they check the room and they're like, yep, there is a staircase up. Yes, you can go up. Or no, there's not. This is a single floor house. They've already done the preparation ahead of time. But what if you either don't want to spend the time fleshing out a whole world on your own in advance for players that might never explore many of the areas that you've created, which is very likely, or if you want to play solo and you want it to be a surprise to you, you don't want to create the world and then run through your own world, you want to create it as you go. Well, that's what the fate chart's for. So you ask a question, like I would ask Mythic, is there a staircase up, is there a staircase to a second floor in this house? And I would assign odds to the choice. If I don't know, or if I think it, could be or couldn't be, there could be a staircase, I might assign 50-50. I might look around and see, well, all of the other houses here have a second floor, and if I look at Lumbridge in the game, right, it seems like almost every building has a second floor. So I'm going to call this likely or very likely, okay? So I'm going to combine my odds, let's say very likely for Lumbridge, with, I'm going to combine my very likely odds with the chaos factor of 5 and find this number in the center, okay? So the center number is our target, and just like in RuneScape Kingdoms, we want to roll under. This is a roll under number. So if we roll a D100 under 75 or equal to 75, the answer is yes, there is a second floor. If we roll above 75, no, there is not a second floor. If we roll 15 or under, this is an exceptional yes. So whatever that means to you. In this case, maybe it's a 3-story building, and a 96 would be an exceptional no, which that might be like there was a second floor, but it was destroyed. Pardon me. LOL ad alarm going off in the middle of the episode. Yeah, so that is basically the gist of it. And so if we were to roll for this, I would take this D100 and roll it. And we get a 50, that's a 56, so that would be a yes. There would be a second floor in the building. And that is basically more or less the point of Mythic. So you can ask questions, assign odds, compare with the chaos factor, and get an answer to your questions without having to have a game master present. This is extraordinarily powerful. This is going to help keep the game interesting and fun. There's also a really fun mechanic where if you roll doubles under the chaos factor, you get a random event. And so that is really going to throw curveballs in our gameplay. And that will, honestly, it'll have a pretty good chance of taking the story of RuneScape in a direction that it never went in the main games. And I think that is going to be fun to explore. We might see the campaign world evolve or even devolve in ways that never really happened in the video games version of Gielinor. And so that's going to be fun to explore together. The last thing we really need to do is to set up Mythic in our little note-taking section over here. So we have Twinrova. I'm going to add a new page. I'm going to call this Adventure 1, right? And what this is going to have is it's going to have a title. We'll probably Here, I'll give a title slot there for whenever we come up with what this adventure should be called. We have, okay, so the game is broken down into scenes, and we'll cover this. Each scene will keep like a little short note about what happened during the scene. The chaos factor is going to be adjusted, so we're going to need a chaos factor. So let's store chaos factor, right? That's important. We'll have scene summaries. That's something that we'll do. And, okay, so we're going to have two lists. We're going to have a list of threads. These are our quests, and we're going to have a list of characters. This is not every character that exists in the game world. These are characters we meet that might be pertinent to our threads, like our current adventure, right? So we need a list called threads, and we need a list called characters. And we can go ahead and pre-populate these with any items of interest. So like our first thread could be discover who sent the letter, right? Our catalyst, our character's catalyst is, let's see if I can quick toggle. I think I can start a new tab, right? Yeah, and have one set to Twinrova and the other set to Adventure 1. Why don't we give this like a compass so it'll look like the quest icon? Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, yeah, so Twinrova, Catalyst, a letter telling of a great fortune waiting for you arrived out of nowhere. Who sent it, why, and how can we find it? So why don't we say discover who sent the letter. Do we want to, okay, we might have multiple threads from this. We want to know who sent the letter and why, and then how can we find it. We might not trust that the fortune exists yet. Discover who sent the letter and why looks like the first quest. So like for a character, we can say the anonymous sender of the letter is our first character, right? And that is not like, that's NPCs, not our actual character. Yeah, so we have our adventure lists, we have our adventure journal set up, and that, I think, yeah, that's really all of the initial setup that you really need to begin playing Mythic, right? And so we now have everything that we need to start playing RuneScape Kingdoms. Yeah, we could immediately start asking questions to place our character more concretely in the world and to start exploring this first thread of figuring out who sent this letter, what does the letter even say, and why did they send it, what kind of fortune is it talking about, how did the letter actually word it. That's going to affect things. Yeah, I've got so many questions, and I'm so excited to explore all of these things together with you in the next episode of Let's Play RuneScape Kingdoms, the role-playing game. In today's episode, we had a session 0. We basically covered what the series is going to be about. We covered some of the most important rules in RuneScape Kingdoms and in Mythic. We didn't cover everything, but we'll kind of let a lot of the rules unfold as we go and as they become important. And when you're learning a tabletop RPG, it is kind of useful to not try to learn everything at once up front, but to just kind of try to play the game with what you know and to add to it as you go, as things become important. Look up the rule, try to remember it. So that's what we're going to do, and that's about as far as we got today. We have a character sheet set up. Twinrova is a miner from the Kingdom of Misthalin. Let's go ahead and make this more epic by saying Kingdom of Misthalin. I'm thinking Lumbridge, and he has a knack for wanting to help people. That's his motivation. He always wants to try to make the world better. When out of nowhere, he receives a letter telling of a great fortune, and that is where we will kick things off next time. We will begin exploring that story, and I'm so excited. I hope that you join me in the next episode when we officially get the adventure underway. If you like what you see here, don't forget to hit that like button and to subscribe for more RuneScape and retro RPG content. I'm Twinrova. This is RuneScape Kingdoms, the role-playing game. Until the next episode, happy scaping and fight on.